Welcome to Suffolk Matters, where all of Suffolk County meets the men and women of Suffolk AME. News, opinions, and insights you won't hear anywhere else. Here's your host, the president of New York's largest independent union, Suffolk AME's Dan Levler.
Welcome to another edition of Suffolk Matters on Walk 97.5 and 94.3 The Shark, where Suffolk County meets the men and women of Suffolk AME. News and views you can't hear anywhere else.
So my guest this morning is New York State Senator Mario Mattera. And when I say senator, I'd like to point out you are a labor senator first and foremost. You came up through this. But Mario, thank you for joining us this morning.
Well, Dan, thank you so much. And all the AME members, 6,000 active, 4,000 retired, 10,000 members that care about our communities. And, you know, we have the emergency services, consumers affairs, civil service, crossing guards, DPW, all people that take care of us every day. And you know what? All listeners need to know how important all of our AME workers are there for us every day. And I thank you for hosting this today. And I know we're going to have a great conversation.
Yeah, and listen, I'm going to have a lot of questions for you, and some of them are going to pertain to public safety. But just as you did your introduction there, I find that sometimes people don't understand the full scope of public safety. You hear public safety and you think police officer in uniform in their car. But there are so many aspects to what AME members do that protect the public as well. Public health, when you're looking at things like Department of Social Services, that's another way of protecting the public, because when you have economic depression, then you have an increase in crime. So there are preventative measures built into all sorts of different levels of government, and public safety really is first and foremost on people's mind these days. And it would be my bad to pass over the opportunity to just remind our listeners this morning that the AME members on the civilian side work hand in hand with our law enforcement partners to produce that public safety element.
That is so true. Public safety is really number one. And guess what's catching up, and it's right there also, is our economy, inflation. People going to the grocery stores right now, and it's just out of control what's just happened in 1 year's time. But let's talk about cashless bail, what's happening right now. I was a huge advocate to make sure that we are repealing what's happening with cashless bail. We need to get the proper people to the table. Dan, just like you as a union leader, just like myself, still being a union leader with Plumbers Local 200. When you have something like this, we need to get the judges, because they lost their discretion.
Yeah.
Okay? We need to get our law enforcement, our PBAs to the table. And we need to get our district attorneys to the table. Yeah. To sit there and come up with the right law. I was there last night speaking in front of a lot of my constituents with my opponent, and just to sit there and say, guys, if everybody looked at this list of cashless bail crimes, this list is out of control. People really need to go online and see this. Criminal sale of controlled substance in near school grounds. Yeah. Imagine that. And if we sell drugs at a school ground or anywhere, and guess what? That's a cashless bail crime. Right. You get cashless bail, no crime. Right. And guess what? You get arrested and you get out with no bail.
Yep.
And you know what? What is people? It's like the bank robber. Mm-hmm. The bank robber gets away with it. Are they going to continue robbing banks?
Of course.
Okay. And this is what's happening right now. It's out of control. It needs to be repealed. It didn't work the first time. Right. It didn't work the second time to repeal it. And then in the governor's budget, the third time was supposed to be a charm. Absolutely not. I voted no. Yeah. I got up, and it was in the school budget, no less.
Sure.
And I got up. Yeah. On the floor. I know we had that little discussion beforehand. Huh? Got up on the floor in our chamber and had to sit there and vote down a school budget because this bail reform that doesn't work. And again, our men and women in blue can't even do their job. Right. This was a job that when I was growing up, I'm 59 years old, that everybody took the civil service test.
Yep.
Am I correct by saying this?
Correct.
Everybody took it for these reasons. Nobody wants to do this.
It's a huge problem, and I want to talk more about that. But I just want to get back to just one more item on this cashless bail. All of us were having the conversation before it was changed that changes needed to happen. These were not the changes we were talking about. And we were also talking about consensus, getting all the stakeholders in one room and talking about what works and what doesn't work, and allowing the people of the state to understand what rule changes were going to occur and allow their input before it happened. Instead, this all got jammed through, and now after the fact, we're scrambling to kind of advocate to nail this thing back into the box. It's all out, and we've got to get it back in.
Yeah, we have to. Again, the only way it's going to get fixed is repeal. You're not going to reform it anymore. It's not going to work. So you know what? This election is going to be a very, very important election. It's probably the most important election in my lifetime right now. How important this is, November 8th.
Sure.
In a lot of ways. Me, I care about both sides. I work across the aisle. I've co-sponsored bills, good bills. Okay, the wage theft bill.
Yeah.
So excited to be with Senator Ramos to co-sponsor the bill.
Sure.
And I got a lot of my conference with the Republican conference to vote for it, which is great. I'm not happy that we give 10 days to the criminal to go fix his problem. I just don't understand that one that the governor put in. Right. I don't know if you heard that one.
Yeah.
So that's great. So the employer, the unscrupulous employer, could go and hurt the worker, but you have 10 days to fix your problem. I'm going to ask you.
So it could take a year for you to get properly paid, and then once the employer's put on notice, they've got 10 days to catch up. Now, do they pay the interest? Do they pay the CPI adjustment on top of that? Because the dollar, when you were supposed to earn it, is worth less now than when you were going to earn it?
You know what? That needs to be totally amended. I was not happy with the amendment that Governor Hochul made. It really should be. You do the crime, you need to do the time. You need to be, you need to go right away and not have a chance to fix that. But you know what? We did put that forward. It did get passed. And, that was something that was important for me in my first 2 years as being a senator. And, I'm going to say this, being a New York State senator, and being a labor leader, you think that, in other words, it's in sync with each other. It is in a lot of ways, but I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of moving parts that's going on,
sure.
Especially with COVID, when COVID hit my first year, and to make sure people were getting vaccinated that wanted to be vaccinated. We had our seniors, they were frightened.
Yeah.
You know this, your own members.
Yeah.
And we had to do this as union leaders and people, for the community. And I've always been there, whatever I could do to help. And, it was very important times for me to make sure that, we made people feel comfortable to get vaccinated, find locations for them. But you know what? We got the light at the end of the tunnel. We need to move forward. We need to get back to normalcy.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I guess to that point, you talk about, the differences in what happened in the world when you were on the, dealing with the governmental side of things and as a labor leader. And I think it's important to point out the men and women of Local 200, when we talk about public health again, I mean, these are men and women that are installing all of these systems and making sure they're installed properly and safely and last for hundreds of years, that have been protecting people's health in a way that you would never know. You would never even think to understand. But the fact of the matter is many diseases are prevented simply by the work that they do.
Oh, well, you know what? With the plumbers union and, with the trades, the plumber protects the health of the nation. We know that. So we were an essential workforce. But you know what? Government enables. So everybody can sit there and say that time with the monies that were given, I had to actually call my members up and say, get to work. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Because they were receiving the extra money from the federal government.
Yeah.
I'm getting $1,200 a week to sit home. No, you're an essential workforce. You go to work.
Yes.
Guess what? Our nurses, everybody in the healthcare was there for our hospitals. We were going and making sure we were bringing lunches and we were doing dinners and saying, thank you so much for being there for our families during COVID. And guess what happened? Government failed by making these people lose their jobs. You test people every day because they don't want to be vaccinated and they're frightened. There's an interrogation. I'm sorry. I was there with all those nurses on the line that lost their jobs. And
right.
You know what? Now, and I got to say, what our Tom DiNapoli, our controller, is doing whatever he could do to help that these people are receiving their back pays and everything that they deserve.
Sure.
Because not for anything, that was not fair. As union leaders, you and I, Mr. Levler, you
Yes.
know that. This is so important. Those there are heroes. They went from heroes to zeros, what the government did, but they'll always be my heroes and be yours also, too. They should have never lost their jobs. I had a press conference up in Albany with my conference,
Yeah.
and I brought up nurses that, you imagine this? I had a couple nurses that, in other words, husband and wife, both RNs. When they received that certification that they're an RN, it's a proud day. Just like when my apprentices graduate,
Sure.
right, from the apprenticeship program.
Yep.
That's a proud day. Guess what? Taken away. They had to lose everything and they had to move like to states like Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Texas, even South Dakota. Do you realize New York State, we lost a congressional seat because we're losing so many people? But that, our governor, and hear me out, there's certain things that I would get very upset about that went there and said, we will bring in foreign workers. We will bring in out-of-state workers. And if we have to, we'll bring in the National Guard. Really? You're going to bring in the National Guard, the jobs that were taken away? Guess what? I create jobs. We create jobs with our unions. We don't lose jobs.
Right.
So that was a very, very difficult time for me. And these people need to be compensated. They were there for us. They were there for our families, not just the nurses, the food prep, the cleaners, and the office staff that lost their jobs. They need to get their jobs back, and they need to get retroactive money besides that and make sure they're compensated for the great work that they have done.
Listen, I don't think it's lost on people that all of these essential jobs that kept the economy moving, that kept everything working, kept people alive. I mean, we're talking about people at the grocery store. And before that, if you were to say to somebody, this world doesn't work without our grocery store workers. The guys that are on the trucks driving produce from one spot to another to get it into your hands. The world doesn't work without these things. You need workers to get things done to stay alive, and these are essential people, and they should be treated as essential people and compensated as essential people. COVID hits, everybody gets it. As soon as COVID started simmering down, now we're talking about entry-level work. This is, not a big deal, and blah, 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 but they are crucial to the function of this country.
Suffolk AME workers went to work. They were essential workforce, and they, could have compromised their families at any time. They knew they had to go to work. And we need them to go to work. Just like when going to the school, I worked my first year to get our kids back to school, not to be hybrid and everything like that. You know what happens when kids sit home dormant?
Yeah.
It was the worst thing. In the beginning, it was great.
Of course, like a mini vacation, right?
The kids were, my daughter, my daughter finally said, oh my God, Dad, I can't wait to go back to school. I can't wait to go back to school. And you know what I did? I went to the superintendents and everything like, guys, we need to come up with something. You know what? You need to get everybody back to school. These kids can't sit dormant. Their minds go wandering.
Yes.
And you know what? That was something important to me. But getting back again to our workers, our essential workforce and everything like that, I will always be there for them. That helps our local economy. We cannot lose these talented people to bad government doing mandates. Mandates are this is Mario Mattera speaking.
Yeah.
Mandates are wrong. Again, we have people, we could have tested them every day. They're in the healthcare, they're in hospitals. There's no reason why they couldn't have been tested every day.
Yeah.
That's called a compromise. So you know what? I am here for our local workforce and not for people to lose their jobs. And you know what? That's why I'm a union leader, just like you, Dan.
And I think about frontline essential workers and, NYPD and FDNY. Those workers were told the same thing. Listen, you're going to lose your job unless you do what we tell you to do. And guess what? The judge disagreed. And now these people that have been sitting out of work, they had a job, they were frontline, essential, again, public safety. They were told you're going to lose your job unless you do X, Y, and Z. As related to COVID, instead of testing them, no, you have to go this other route. They lost their jobs. And the judge says, pay them back and reinstate them. Who did you help? Now you have all of these people sitting out of work that could have been out there protecting the public's interests, right? When we say public employee, the public pays to have these services done. They are employed by the public, right?
So what happens to the morale, my friend?
It goes
out, right? You know what? You know how many people I spoke to, just like yourself, that, there it is. We speak to these people.
Yeah.
And you know what? It was okay for the airline pilots. What did they do? They go, fine, guess what? We're not flying. Right. And guess what happened? Oh, you're exempt.
Yes.
Look what happened with the sports figures. Oh, guess what? We're not going to play sports. Oh, guess what? You're exempt.
Right.
Broadway. How are we picking and choosing? This is what is called bad government in my eyes.
Right.
And its mandates are a disaster. And you know what? That's something that I'll always fight to make sure. Obviously, there's a compromise with everything. Yeah, listen, we had a pandemic, and nobody knew what the outcome was going to come with this. But you know what? We have to make sure that we are there for our community. We need to be there for our workers, our local workers, because I always say this, local jobs to local people. Yeah. That keeps the economy going. Not to have people come from out of state and foreign countries to take our jobs away. Because I'm going to tell you something. right now, look what's happening in the city of New York, the most vibrant city in the world, is ruined. Right now, you have a situation where the migrants are coming in. Right now, the homeless shelters are packed. Right. Mayor Adams doesn't even know what to do. Right. And you know what's going to happen? They're going to be going all over. They're going to be going all over the state. The non-American citizens. Hey, I have no problem. My grandfather came over from Italy. He went to Ellis Island, and that's how he came over. But right now, this is a total disaster. I have a governor that's not even looking right now to say, what are we doing with this? This is a serious problem because what's going to happen is these workers are going to come out to where we live in the suburbs, and I'm going to ask you a quick question: how do you legalize, and how do you get them to go into the workforce?
Right.
Again, this is a big question right now.
I want to be clear on one aspect of this. I don't think they're coming here for a free ride, right? If they could get to work and they could be part of what it is we are, but it has to be clearly defined for them.
Absolutely.
Listen,
and you know what? Let them become union workers.
Do it. Right.
I have no, you know what? I want to make sure that it's a level playing field.
Yes.
The problem is, like me in the construction industry, just to give you a heads up, we work hard, just like you at AME, a decent wage, a decent health care, and a decent pension with a collective bargaining agreement. How is this going to be a level playing field? It's going to erode everything that we do and everything that we stand for.
Because you're going to have unscrupulous players who are going to say, I can get the competitive edge on the rest of my industry by exploiting these workers, and that's not going to be good.
It's going to be a disaster for us because it's going to erode everything that we do with a collective bargaining agreement. So you know what? I'm very frightened of this.
So there needs to be a defined path, right?
And you have Mayor Adams right now. He doesn't know what to do. And just to give you a heads up, and the Governor Hochul, I'm sorry, she's not even addressing this. Very scary.
So I want to get into a couple of other topics while you're here. I guess the first thing we normally do really is just to talk a little bit about your history. And you've already alluded to it, but I mean, first and foremost, you started as a labor leader and then you got involved in government. But why don't we learn a little bit about Mario Mattera, the union leader that became the senator?
Okay, well, that's great. And I really, really appreciate it. Getting the endorsement from Suffolk AME and you, Dan, being the president, and all your officers and members having faith in me means so much to me. And I want to say thank you to all of my AME friends for that endorsement. Just to give you a heads up, I'm Senator Mario Mattera. I'm 59 years old and 57 years in the great town of Smithtown, which right now I represent part of Brookhaven, Smithtown, and part of Huntington. Now with the redistricting lines, which I don't want to get into the gerrymandering that went on, that we had to have a special masters out of Pennsylvania because government is dysfunctional and we couldn't do it. So we had to pay taxpayers' monies for new district lines, which I will be representing when I do win this election, because I will be winning this election, in Smithtown, all of Smithtown and all of Huntington. I am married to my beautiful wife, Terry, for 28 years. And I have two daughters, Jessica and Jamie, 23 and 20 years old. That I'm very, very proud of my family. And I always say this, without family, you have nothing.
Right.
I'm a 42-year member of Plumbers Local Union number 200, 30 years as an officer and 20 years as the business agent, representing over 1,100 members and their families, which I'm so proud of. We have our apprentices and our journeymen. We have three different divisions with our pump and tank division, our small residential and commercial, and then our prevailing wage work, our A work, which is our hospital work and all that big work. And our apprenticeship program is one of the best programs, I feel, in New York State, with an indentured apprenticeship program, which is so important to teach our young plumbers the trade the right time, the first time. And, being a business agent for 20 years, I watched one local at the time, and it was local 7, which was Carpenters, which is local 290. And John Fuchs was his name. And I don't know if you remember him. He was the business manager at the time. And I was watching him, how involved he was with politics. And I sat there, and I sat back as a new business agent with my $60 suit, my Sears finest. Kidding. And I was watching. I would sit back and watch. I was like, wow, I got to get involved in politics. I got to get involved and make sure I educate our elected officials what unions are all about.
Right.
And, especially our programs that we have and what we could do for them to back them. And it went a long way. And guess what? We've been going to political functions together
Sure.
for a lot of years.
Long time.
And
Yeah.
you and I talking about sewers and how important, and you're an advocate for sewers, and you and I know how important that is for our future, which I
Absolutely.
hopefully will get to talk about.
Yeah.
But me being a union leader got me here, and if it wasn't for the men and women of labor, I would not be our second Senate district senator. So guess what? I am indebted to all of our hardworking men and women of labor with our unions that got me where I am today. Because yes, am I a voice for labor? That's why I'm here.
Yeah. And, for those of us that know you, we know you as a union guy, but first and foremost, a family guy, very proud of your family and a community guy, right? It's not just your immediate family. It's the people that you know, your union family, your community family. And that really is, in the years that I've known you, that's what's driven you to do all the things you did, whether it was in exclusively labor or now in the broader sense in the Senate. So, again, just a big thank you for applying yourself the way you did in life. Not everybody develops themselves the way you did.
Well, it's so funny how people say, "Wow, Senator Mattera, you're a Republican. How could you not be, a Democrat? That you're a labor leader." That's usually goes. I go, "Excuse me." I go, first of all, that's my R stands for. I'm very proud to be Republican, but my R stands for realist. I worked very, very hard to care about certain, aspects of life with, people. To be on Suffolk County Water Authority was a very, premier board to be on for 6 years. And Jimmy Gorin, which is my friend, I saw him last night, great senator. Jim Gorin is somebody who's very upsetting to me, that the gerrymandering of the district lines, and Jim Gorin is not going to be up there. Jim Gorin decided that he was going to run against me. And, that's not like, oh, I'm proud that Jim Gorin. No, that has nothing to do with anything. He's a good man. He was good. But you know what? There's so much going on with the far left that he was just very upset with what was going on. The bail reform was very upsetting to Jim. This marijuana bill, we were talking about it earlier.
Sure.
Very upsetting. And I said that to even Senator Warren. I will never be happy with that. That is just another gateway to drugs. But you know what? And again, with my local, we have a zero tolerance for drugs. And that's something where we need right now. Even the police cannot detect right now what's happening with marijuana.
Yeah, they can only test exposure, and it's within the last 30 days. They can't test impairment. And that's, we're seeing in industry that's becoming problematic because people don't understand what to do about this. You know very well that you can't have somebody come in and operate heavy machinery while, drunk, and you can check to see if they are or they aren't. This other thing isn't refined. It was another let's see what happens kind of piece of legislation.
And like I said, 25% of the revenue will go to drug rehab facilities. How is that not contradicting that everything that we do? It really makes no sense. I was a fighter on this. I will never be happy with this. I was very happy out of my 3 towns I represent that the dispensaries, I made sure that I worked with all the supervisors to have a conversation with them right away. Even with Rich Schaefer, which everybody cares about. Rich Schaefer is one of the best. But my Ed Wareheim with Smithtown, Chad Lubinacci at the time, and Ed Romaine. Out of the 3, 2 of them opted out with the dispensaries. And again, I'm just very, very concerned for our future, for our family's future. Right now, a lot of stuff has been happening, and our kids don't need to think that this is a normal. Okay,
Right.
great. You gummy bears and go in and buy marijuana and all that other stuff. It's just going to be a total disaster.
Now, here's where we confuse people a little bit, right? As labor leaders, we say, okay, we're not sure if this is a good idea, but now it's an industry and it exists, right? Right, wrong, or indifferent, it exists. And we want to make sure that if somebody's got a job somewhere, now I don't represent these people, neither do you, but we all took steps to say, hey, we want to make sure if this industry exists and people have to work it, that they aren't exploited. And we push for unionization in these shops that are going to be producing this in the state of New York. And again, I think the average person gets confused. Wait, you're against doing X, Y, and Z, but now you're advocating
it's a
for the
law.
people that are doing it, right? So it's something that's allowed, and we say even if we don't agree, like on a moral level, if you agree or disagree, it doesn't matter. It's legal. It's allowed to happen, and we're all in it together to protect workers, any worker.
I want to make sure that the workers that will be selling and working this will be unionized. I'm hoping that's the case, and I'm hoping that it's going to be enforced. So that's one thing that I'm a little bit concerned about.
Sure.
And not for anything, too. There it is. The people that are going to be starting these businesses are the people that were
previously incarcerated.
Yes, incarcerated criminals. It's amazing how that happens. I really feel it's discriminating in a lot of ways because everybody should have a chance, not just because you were a criminal and you now could have your business and you're the first ones that are going to be picked to have this business. That's something that I don't understand.
I share a lot of your concerns. Again, it's important for me, for my members. If the rules change in the state of New York and say something's allowed that didn't used to be allowed, well, my members are part of the people in the state of New York, and I want them to have the right to choose one way or the other if they'd like to participate. And I want to protect their jobs, and I want to protect the people that the work that we do provides for, right? You know, I mean, most of the people listening today are constituents in Suffolk County and not directly AME members. You know, we have about 800,000 people that listen to this show, and they all benefit from the work that my members do, and they're all affected by these changes, you know, these various laws that we're talking about and how they change. And I think, you know, a lot of times, like I say, I have these conversations with folks, and they say, well, here's something I don't understand about unions. And I think this was a great way to illustrate the point. You know, we may not agree on what marijuana laws are, but if somebody's got a job somewhere, whether I represent them or not, I want them taken care of. I want them treated fairly. I want them protected in their job and fairly compensated so that they can make enough to have that middle-class lifestyle and give back to the community.
Again, a decent wage, a decent health care, and a decent pension, because it's very difficult to save. You know, people think that, in other words, oh, there it is. I'm going to go put into a 401k. Well, you know what? I can't do it this month. Maybe I'm going to do it next month. Oh, well, I couldn't do it. It doesn't work. That's why
it's gotta be built in.
It has to be built in. A collective bargaining agreement is so important. And, you know, I have so many young people come up to me and say, I want to get into the union because their parents couldn't save anything.
Yeah.
And they're like, you know what? I'm looking forward to save. But, you know, not since COVID, things are changing. And what's happening with this economy and inflation, I'm having a little bit of a hard time right now because people need it in their pocket.
Yep.
They can't right now. It's just amazing. Like right now, I'm very, very concerned about the oil prices. I'm very, very concerned what's happening with our renewable energy situation. That, in other words, you know, our mixed fuels are so important for us for our future still, till renewable energy is perfected.
Right.
I have no problem to have an electric car. Not everybody can have an electric car tomorrow. Our infrastructure cannot handle it. Just look at California right now.
Well, you know, when we talk about infrastructure, you got to remember some of these areas that are providing electric for electric cars derive their electricity from fossil fuels. So we haven't fixed the problem. It's a fledgling industry. It's going to be a great industry, I believe, and there's going to be great union jobs in there where people are going to be able to thrive and rewire and restructure the infrastructure to work even better than it does today. It's not there yet.
It's not there yet. And you know what? I'm not sitting there and saying I had a press conference and I had, you know what? I didn't have elected officials at the press conference in front of Smithtown Town Hall, and there was a project going across the street that I showed right there. It's going to cost them $300 more a month because if that's electric, then you're not going to have gas. You won't have gas in those apartments. So again, it needs to be perfected. We need to sit back and say, okay, and get the right people to the table. To sit there and say, okay, when we're going to be ready for renewable energy. I had even 1049 Pack-a-Dice. You know, he was there speaking on behalf. I had NECA, National Electrical Contract Association, said, guys, we need to have the infrastructure put in place before we can move forward with this. We do not have it. We are right now, we're in the dark ages still with our transmission lines and everything like that for our future. So again, all you're going to do is put expansions on power plants, which are on fossil fuels. So again, I've been a huge advocate to make sure that we still have mixed fuels in our life till renewable energy is perfected.
So one last thing as we're winding down, you know, we talked just at the beginning, and I think we need to just spend a little bit more time on it. This concept of inflation and how that's affecting people, how the fact that the dollar was worth your buying power on a dollar 10 years ago versus what the buying power on a dollar is today. You know, and this is something that really has a great impact on me, my members, obviously. You know, when your buying power shrinks and you can't expand on your ability to bring in, you know, more wages, you essentially are working as hard or maybe even harder than you used to for less.
You know what? This is this is a scary situation. Inflation is up 9.1% just from a year ago.
I can tell you, business journals are starting to say it's because workers are asking for more money to get by that is driving inflation. That's a false narrative.
That is so false. And you know what? Yeah, we could go sit there and say that we have 4.1% unemployment right now. Really, have more jobs than there are people.
Right.
So really, we're not doing a good job. I feel I'm just going to give you a heads up. We owe the federal government, I think it's $7 billion into the unemployment insurance fund because we weren't borrowing, and not for anything. We had a $220 billion budget that could have took care of that, but that's another story. That a lot of monies could have took care of our debt. But you know what? There it is. Gas is up 60%. Yeah, it went down a little bit, but guess what? That's not oil. Oil's up 100%. Okay, just imagine eggs, right? Dozen eggs up 33%. You can't even go to the supermarket and everything like that. But we need to obviously cut the red tape. I will also say unnecessary regulations for our small businesses. I'm very concerned about
small
right now.
Small business is important.
It's so important.
Big business, I have some problems with when they show billions in profit.
Okay, perfect. Let's just talk about this. It was very important. Right now, I have a bill out, the drop shipping bill, which I saw that, in other words, that we were going to discuss this.
Yeah.
It's a great bill. It's not going to be a surcharge. It's going to be the tax, certain amount of percentage of the tax that's the tax to the state. We'll go back. Obviously, for 1%, I want to go for small businesses to protect them, okay, to help them out, whatever we have to do to reduce taxes, whatever, because right now they're being taxed more and more and more. And think about something, too. I'm not saying that people have to do what's right, but there it is with our drop shipping bill that I'm talking about is like with Amazon's, any drop shipping company. I'm not going to go pick on Amazon.
Right.
But let's just talk about these prime trucks that are driving all up and down our roadways.
Yep.
We need to have a certain percentage that are going to our DPWs, our municipalities, that for our roadways.
Right.
Okay, because they're being used. I'm not happy Saturdays and Sundays seeing all these, and even my kids. I'm like, you got to get out to the stores. We got to promote our local mom and pop brick and mortar stores. This is going to be a disaster if everybody's still. Yes, COVID even had our seniors. Now we're going online.
Yep.
And they're going online. And you get those packages every day. We need to go and promote our local small businesses, and the only way we're going to protect them is by reducing the tax structure.
Yeah, it is an affective policy that some of these very large drop shipping corporations are making a fortune because policy allows them to exploit the system, and then the everyday folks that use these services end up picking up the cost on their taxes to repair roads and other aspects of infrastructure. But Senator Mario Mattera, I want to thank you again for joining us this morning. I know things are very busy right now, and you're out there, making sure that people are seeing you and hearing from you. And I agree. You are the candidate for this district to win this election. That being said, you're not sitting back and saying that. You're out there and you're making sure, what you always have done, out there participating in the community, hearing from people, speaking to them about their needs, and then working on solutions. So I want to thank you for carving some time out to speak to us.
Oh, well, thank you and all the members of AME for the endorsement. And Dan, thank you for being a great union leader that you are. Been friends a long, long time. Keep up the great work. I love this radio show. It's so, so important to educate our community. And you know what? You do a great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mario. Senator Mario Mattera. And to our listeners, we'll speak to you next time.